It started with a text message. Just one small message on my wife's phone, and something in me broke. It wasn't anything huge. Just a, "Hey, how are you doing?" from a man I didn't know. But the way she smiled when she saw it, the way she quickly hid her phone, I knew something wasn't right. I had no proof, no hard evidence. But I had a feeling, and I couldn't ignore it. So, I did something I never thought I would do. I started tracking her. For 30 days, I followed every move, every call, every conversation. I became a ghost in her life, watching from the shadows. What I discovered was more than I could handle. The first day was the hardest. I didn't know where to start. I had to be careful not to be obvious. I noticed her phone had an app where she kept track of her appointments. I didn't want to make her suspicious, so I only focused on her daily routine. I would follow her in the car, just a little behind, making sure I didn't raise any questions. It was strange. The more I watched, the more I realized how little I knew about her life outside of what she told me. She'd always been busy, but now it felt like she was hiding something. I knew her meetings were just that, meetings, but there were too many late-night projects and work dinners. I'd never thought about it before. Now it felt wrong. By the 5th day, I saw something that made my heart stop. She went to a coffee shop. She'd always said she hated that place. I had dropped her there once, and she had called it a tourist trap. But there she was, sitting with a man. He wasn't someone I recognized. They were talking, laughing, sharing a meal. It looked normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I stayed at a distance, watching through the window. She seemed so comfortable with him, too comfortable. The whole scene made me uneasy. Why was she meeting him in secret? Why hadn't she told me? I couldn't help myself anymore. I needed answers. I started looking through her phone when she wasn't around. At first, it was small things, texts between her and this man. But then I found more pictures, messages, even a few phone calls. They'd been talking for months. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to confront her, but I knew I had no real proof. So I kept watching. I needed to know what was really happening. By the middle of the month, things were escalating. I was no longer just watching from a distance. I was following her every movement. One evening, she didn't come home on time. She had told me she'd be working late. But this time, it felt different. I waited for hours before calling her. When she answered, her voice was tight, like she was hiding something. "I'm just finishing up. I'll be home soon," she said. But I didn't believe her. I drove to the office. There were no cars in the parking lot except for hers. It was then I decided to follow her again. I found her at a hotel, a small, discreet one just outside of town. I parked far away, out of sight, and waited. It was late, almost midnight. I saw her walk into the hotel with him, the man I had seen her with before. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized what was going on. I had no idea how long it had been happening, but I knew now. She wasn't just seeing him as a friend. I stayed for a while, watching the hotel. It was torture. I had no idea what to do with this information. But at that moment, everything in my life felt like it was crumbling. I couldn't keep hiding the truth from myself any longer. I needed to confront her. When she came home that night, I could see the guilt in her eyes. I didn't need to say anything. She already knew. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you. It just happened." The words didn't make sense. How could this happen? How could she do this to me? The silence between us was thick. I wanted to yell, to scream, but I didn't. I was numb. After all the tracking, the following, the endless nights of waiting, I finally had the answers. The full truth was out. The man she had been seeing was someone she had met at work. It started as a friendship, but somewhere along the way, it turned into something more. She admitted everything. The secret meetings, the late nights, the lies. But there was one thing she couldn't explain. I found a folder on her phone. Photos of them together, yes, but there was one picture I didn't expect. It was a picture of us, of me, a picture I had no memory of taking. "What is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. She looked at the photo, then at me, Her eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted you to find out like this," she said. "But I couldn't lie to you anymore." In the days that followed, we both tried to figure out what had happened. I couldn't look at her the same way. Trust was broken, and the damage was done. I didn't know if our marriage would survive this, or if I even wanted it to. The days blurred together. I had to move out for a while, to think, to clear my head. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that picture, the one where I was smiling, unaware of everything happening behind my back. I couldn't undo the past. I couldn't take back the tracking. I couldn't unsee the truth. But I could decide what came next. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know what that was. The days after the confrontation felt like I was walking through a fog. Every interaction with her seemed distant, like we were strangers who had once shared a life together, but no longer knew how to talk to each other. She tried to apologize again and again, but her words felt hollow now. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I didn't want her to explain herself. What good would that do? The damage was done. The betrayal hung heavy in the air, suffocating everything between us. I spent most of my days outside the house, trying to get away from the tension that clung to our walls. I didn't want to be around her, but I also didn't know where to go. I couldn't escape my own thoughts, and I couldn't escape the anger that kept building up inside of me. I couldn't stop replaying everything I had seen, the hotel, the hidden messages, the lies. I had trusted her. She was my wife, the one person I thought I could rely on. Now, I didn't know who she was anymore. I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge me. So, I called my old friend, Ben. We hadn't really kept in touch, but I knew he'd understand. I didn't know who else to turn to. "Man, I don't even know what to do," I told him. "I found out my wife's been cheating on me. I tracked her for a month. I followed her every move, and I saw it all." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "You know you can't keep living like this, right?" Ben said finally. "You can't keep doing this to yourself. You have to make a choice. Either you walk away or you try to fix things. But it's not going to be easy." His words hit harder than I expected. He was right. I couldn't keep wallowing in the pain, letting it consume me. But I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. I wasn't ready to let her go, even if I knew deep down that I should. After 2 weeks of silence, I agreed to meet with her. She asked for it, and I wasn't sure what I was expecting. She told me that she wanted to talk through everything, that we needed to figure out where to go from here. We met at a small cafe, the same place we used to go when things were still good between us. It felt strange to sit across from her, like we were strangers. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you. I've been selfish, and I've made so many mistakes. But I love you, and I don't want to lose you." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I didn't know what to say. I wanted to feel something, anger, relief, even pity. But all I felt was empty. There was no spark left in me to fight for this relationship. "Love isn't supposed to feel like this," I replied quietly. "You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed the trust we built. It's not something that can be fixed overnight." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel sympathy. I couldn't. All I could think about was how she had chosen someone else, how she had lied to me, how she had taken everything we had for granted. "I know," she whispered, "but please, can we try to work through this? I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I looked at her, wondering if I could ever trust her again. The following days were filled with more conversations, more apologies, and more unanswered questions. I tried to look past the pain, tried to see if there was a way to rebuild what we had. But I couldn't. It was like trying to fix a broken vase with glue. It would never be the same again. I began to think about my future without her. The thought of starting over seemed daunting, but the thought of staying in this painful limbo was worse. I was tired. I was tired of living in the past, tired of wondering whether every word she said was a lie. One night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty walls. My heart ached, but I knew what I had to do. I couldn't keep living this way. I couldn't keep pretending that things could go back to normal when everything had changed. I made the decision to leave. I moved out that weekend. It wasn't easy. Leaving the house where we had made memories, where we had shared laughter and dreams. It felt like walking away from a part of myself, but I knew it was the only way to heal. The first few weeks were the hardest. I stayed with Ben for a while, but the loneliness still crept in and I struggled to adjust. I spent time with old friends, went on walks, tried to focus on things that had nothing to do with her. It wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't easy, but slowly, I began to feel like myself again. 3 months had passed since I left her. It wasn't the happily ever after I had once imagined, but it was my reality now. I didn't know what the future held, but I was finally starting to see it as my future, not one that was tied to someone else's mistakes. I'd stopped tracking her. I had stopped looking at her social media, stopped wondering what she was doing or who she was with. It wasn't easy, but I had to let go. I had to stop living in the past. I had learned something important through all of this. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight, and some things some people just weren't meant to be. I'll never really know what went wrong between us. She still sends me messages sometimes, asking if we can talk, if we can try again. But I know the truth now. We both made mistakes, and some things just can't be fixed. I don't regret tracking her, though it wasn't easy, but it gave me the answers I needed. It gave me the clarity to make the choice that was right for me. And now, as I look ahead, I'm learning to trust again, not just other people, but myself